Rick Scott is among 29 new governors elected in November. Some are long-time politicians, others, like Scott, are newcomers with business backgrounds. And they're addressing budget shortfalls in some very controversial ways. In Maine, Governor Paul LePage supports a bill to roll back parts of that state's child labor laws, allowing children to work for less than the minimum wage. Michigan Governor Rick Snyder wants to cut school funding and tax private and public pension income. And next door in Ohio, Governor John Kasich has just signed a bill curbing union rights for public workers, one that's even tougher than the controversial measure that sparked weeks of protests in Wisconsin. Jason Johnson is a professor of political science at Hiram College in the state of Ohio. I asked him if the Republican governors weren't just giving voters what they promised.
Yeah, see, the problem is that the voters didn't really know what they were buying. They just knew they were unhappy with what they had. You know, a lot of these Republican governors, like Rick Scott, like what's happening in Wisconsin and Maine and other places, the public was just unhappy with the Democrats and they voted for the Republicans but didn't realize what kind of policies they were going to get.
Let's look at the latest job figures now. I mean, it may appear like a step in the right direction, but we know that the public sector is still hemorrhaging jobs. Surely such drastic cuts in the states that we highlighted earlier are just going to make things worse.
Yeah, they're going to make things worse, and also the attacks on unions aren't helping at all. See, the problem is that even if the economy starts working better and you have private sector jobs, the public sector jobs are what allow people to want to come to a state. People want to move to a state and work because there are good school teachers, because there are good police officers. If you don't have those resources, the state becomes less popular. That's what you see happening in Florida right now.
It's funny that interesting, I should say, that you've just mentioned police and teachers, because I was trying to get to that next. If we look at the cuts, we're looking at stuff like food stamps, school funding, pensions. It doesn't take a genius to see that it's going to be low-income families that will probably be hit the hardest. Isn't this a gamble on the part of the Republican Party so close to an election year?
Oh, it's a horrible gamble. And I think they're guessing on some level or another this is going to end up getting blamed on Barack Obama. They had that chance last fall, and they seem to have blown their political capital already. Look, it's really simple. Either you have more cops or you have more teachers. You can't cut both. If you cut school teachers, you need more police officers. And I don't think the Republicans understand that, and the public has gotten sick of these governors only 3 or 4 months in the office.
But on the flip side, Mr. Johnson, you can't have your cake and eat it too. We've got many states in the red. How else do they go about reducing their budget deficits?
The best way to reduce the budget deficit, believe it or not, is by raising taxes. And nobody wants to say that, but you have to raise taxes and cut spending. If you look, many of these governors, they want to cut government services and then offer tax incentives for businesses to come to the state. Well, the problem is, you know, the businesses are just going to hop from state to state wherever they think they can get the best deal. At some point, you're going to have to start taxing the corporations that are there and cutting spending. It's a mixture of both philosophies, Republican and Democrat, that the public is crying for. No one seems to have figured that out yet.
So you're very big on both sides meeting in the middle, I think it's safe to say. But what would this really look like, and is it practical?
It's very practical. If you think about it, there was just a report, it's been big in the United States, that some of the largest Fortune 500 companies in this country don't pay any taxes at all. We could close millions of tax loopholes in the United States, fill our tax coffers, and cut back on some unnecessary expenses. The problem is there's a lack of political will. The Republicans are overreaching too far on the budget cuts. The Democrats are overreaching too far on the spending, and neither side seems to understand that the money is there. They're just not going after the right people.
Jason Johnson speaking to me a little earlier on.